Don't take that personality test, even if you think it's a joke. I've seen people that know it's a joke get locked in that room, have their ruin found, and sign up for a course. Dude, I've seen it many, many times. It's not something to fuck with.
Tell me, Doug Scott Kramer, welcome to On the Edge with Andrew Gold. I want to hear about some of your story. Tell us who you are and a bit about your background.
Sure. I assume that we're talking about the main feature of my life, which was growing up in a cult called Scientology. So, I mean, I do other things. I'm not just an ex-Scientologist, but that had a massive, massive impact, and it was the through line for my existence. If you want to hear the story real quick, I can give you a quick background on how my father got into it and sort of the quick timeline so people know who the hell I am and what we're talking about. Is that okay?
Let's do it. Yeah.
Okay. So around 9 years of age, my father, who was a normal guy, we had a normal family, and he went down to work one day and he saw an ad at the bottom of a newspaper that said Dianetics. It said, learn how to communicate better or fix your family problems. These buttons, as they call it in Scientology, that people would respond to. And since my dad kind of is a bit of an introvert and has had difficulty communicating with us in general, that registered. So he went down to what was called the mission. Scientology had missions back in the day. And this is in Ventura, California, about 15 minutes away from where he worked. So long story short, and we can get into what happened to him that day, he came back to our house with what I describe, if a person in the military has been traumatized, maybe they have complex post-traumatic stress disorder, and they come back with a 1,000-yard stare or the 100-yard stare, the blank look like nobody's home. So my dad came home with that look in his eye, started talking in a strange way, and said to my mother, I need to borrow a fairly large sum of money from my brother, because we didn't have a lot of money at the time, to do this new thing that I just discovered called Scientology. My mom freaked out. I didn't know what was going on with it, where they were arguing for a few weeks. And long story short, it was either going to cause a divorce possibly if my dad wasn't allowed to do it, or my mom needs to go down and check it out so he can do it. Long story short, she got sucked into it eventually. And then they would double team me whenever I'd have problems in school, I'd have problems with a girlfriend or whatever. They were trained how to manipulate me to break me down and get me to go down to Scientology. Now, I hated Scientology for the longest time. I didn't know what it was. We didn't have the internet, so you couldn't Google Xenu. I didn't know what it was. I just knew the evil entered our house. Something was different about my dad. My mom didn't like it. All of our instincts said something's bad here. But like I said, she didn't want to face possibly getting a divorce. My dad insisted on doing this, and so she went with it. Because of that decision, like I said, me and my sister, not fully, but a decent amount. I was the black sheep of the family, so they worked on me the most. But once Scientology comes into someone's family, it's a serious thing. It's not a church on Sunday thing. It's a whole life change. So we all got sucked into that, and since what they would do is they would put me down. I was the black sheep, so I was doing typical teenage rebellion stuff. Nothing too bad, but I would get in trouble a lot. So they would sit me down. They would allow me to offload and open up and be honest with them. And then at the very end, and this happened many, many times, they would say, do you want to be punished for like a few weeks or a month? Or, because we believe it'll help you out, would you accept a course that we pay for, a $50 course to go down to Scientology that we believe will really help you out? So I told them to go F themselves most of the time. Eventually, I kind of went with it. And it was the gradual seeds of indoctrination that were going in. Scientology makes a lot of sense at the beginning. There's a lot of tricks and snags. I want to be up front. It's a con from the very beginning. You're being put into a hypnotic trance with their drills. And it's very, very dangerous. However, initially, before they hit you with the space opera and the stuff, because it's boiling a frog in the water, it's very slow. It makes a hell of a lot of sense, Andrew. So seed by seed, this was going in. I had a vulnerable point in my 20s, and I took to it. Again, I'm making a long story short. So from around 20 to 33, I was a 100% Manchurian candidate believer. And dude, they make Manchurian candidates. I'm not using that as a word to for effect. I was in a different reality. I totally believed it. And even though I've been out 12 years now, Andrew, I woke up in January 2008 because a concerned friend from my acting class dropped off a cult book called Combating Cult Mind Control by Steve Hassan. And I was out of Scientology in about 20 to 30 minutes reading that book. But between even being out over 12 years now, people don't understand, man. I know it looks stupid. Scientology looked stupid to me when I was a kid, and it looks stupid to me now. But the technology of how to brainwash someone is in all these cults. And Scientology happens to have the most comprehensive package of mind control techniques, I think, of most of the cults. So it's very weird even today, realizing that that wasn't true. I know it wasn't true, but dude, I'm telling you, when you're in that Truman Show and they hypnotize you, it's just as believable as real reality. All the stupid stuff that we believed in.
You should clarify what, for those who haven't seen the movie, and I imagine it was a book, what the Manchurian Candidate was, and what, you know, what that feels like to be in it.
So hard to describe, but well, it's based on you know, there's the famous movie that people know about, and there's also a movie called Telephone, Telefon, I believe, where they, you know, in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, they had Project MK Ultra, where the intelligence agencies and the CIA, this is all documented. This is not conspiracy theory. I'm sure you know that. But they were trying to basically use hypnosis, pain drug and hypnosis, was what L. Ron Hubbard called it when we were in the cult, because he was trying to expose it while simultaneously taking that technology and doing the same thing to us. So in the 40s, 50s, and 60s, I don't want to get too deep into this, but you're asking about the Manchurian Candidate. So that takes us back to Operation Paperclip and Project MK Ultra, when the government, the intelligence agencies were trying to make people that they could implant with suggestions using hypnosis and drugs and get them to kill, to be a courier during times of war, to deliver messages and not have any memory. They have a whole bunch of sub-projects that they created and tested on people in prisons, high universities, Stanford University, all over America, Canada, and even in Europe, to test out if they could control people in this way. Scientology is a takeoff of that, Andrew, and it's hard to describe, but I can tell you, having lived it, it absolutely can make you go against your own moral code. People are, you know, it drives me nuts when people say you can never be hypnotized to do something against your own moral code. You absolutely can. And I would have died for, I would have done everything that I did do everything that L. Ron Hubbard told me. I lived my life by that. And no one was going to come along and take that away from me or peel me away from that belief system. It made me believe. So a long story short, is the Manchurian Candidate, even though they fictionalize it a bit in movies, so that when you do come out and say, hey, I was a Manchurian Candidate in Scientology, it's just like, oh, you just watched too many movies. No, that was a real thing, and they exaggerate it and put it in movies and perhaps desensitize people from how serious that is. And that's what Scientology does, dude. They make you into, just like any cult, you know, you could take the Children of God, you could take the Jehovah's Witnesses. It just basically is brainwashing that makes you absolutely dedicated to the cult leader, and then the parents and everybody around you can't talk sense into you because you're subconsciously programmed where it's out of your own awareness. So you can't see the mental prison and the mind prison that was created. Does that answer it at all?
Yeah, no, it does. Absolutely. I think what's really interesting about your particular experience is, and what maybe runs counter to how we might imagine being a cult if we haven't been, is that when you were young, I mean, you were 9 years old when your dad got into all this stuff. You'd think that would be the point when you'd be really into it, but actually you were pushing against it even as a 9-year-old. And then maybe in your 20s, that would be when you'd go, no, none of this can't be real. But that was the moment where you really got into it. Like, how did it go that way round?
It is a trip case. I look at myself as a case study because I don't know of any people that's really happened to. I'm sure it has, but yeah. Okay, so here's what happened. I've always been a right-brain person, meaning I wanted to be an artist. I wanted to do something outside of the system, popping out of the womb. So that is kind of the through line, which got me into Scientology, brought me out to Hollywood to do acting and stuff. We could talk about that stuff later. Scientology had a ton of appeal to me, even though I hated it, because it takes you into an out there kind of, there's no limits. So you're an like you live past lives. This life isn't all that there is. There's these really heady concepts that are very attractive. So even though and there's a discipline in Scientology, which I was lacking, which I liked. So there's many things that I might still, even though they have nothing to do with Scientology, I still entertain these concepts, man. I've always believed that there's more to reality than just what we're presented with. I mean, we're just basically bombarded constantly, from the education system to the propaganda that hits us on the news. It's very similar to what I went through in Scientology. So even though, like I said, Andrew, I hated it because it could feel just like my mother. Her motherly instincts told her that evil entered the family. My dad changed. He was, like I said, hypnotized with the dead eyes. It was obvious that it was evil. However, if you're in that environment, you know, so I'd get punished every few weeks, every few months. And this would happen over, let's see, my dad got into it at 9, I got into it at 20. So there's about 11 years of every other month or whatever being in and around it. And like I said, the initial courses, they have a whole thing called ethics technology where you can map out your life and do things exactly right. They have all sorts of tools, and they love bomb you. And you're in an environment where everybody's trying to help you. And then they show you this grade chart, this bridge to total freedom, which is every organization, that says you're not just a flesh being. There's all these different levels, which will actually, you'll remember who you are, and you'll be totally free. And also, L. Ron Hubbard had a whole system that was already something that I was into popping out of the womb. And that is, consensus reality seems limited. And L. Ron Hubbard pushes the idea and pushes massive conspiracies that you're just more F the government, F the schooling system. Don't listen to authority. So that was really attractive to me and a lot of people. So I'm not saying everybody, but they have a lot of dreamers, people that think that there's more to life than just working a frickin' 9-to-5 job. So that, I think, is what hooked me and other people. And yeah, my dad, that's interesting because my parents are very system, left brain, completely by the book people. With or without Scientology, that would have created and did create a conflict in my family. I was trying to I wanted to move. I knew what I wanted to do as a kid. I wanted to be an actor. And just to get out to Hollywood to even begin that, especially having Scientology on my back, which both helped and encouraged me and simultaneously was preventing me, having all these elements going on, it made it just difficult with my mother and my father. Now, my dad was in the Navy, and Scientology is set up in a very militant way that mimics the Navy. They have Sea Org members that sign billion-year contracts that wear these very intimidating uniforms that look exactly like the Navy. I think that's what hooked my dad, because they have L. Ron Hubbard was in the Navy. He was probably an intelligence operative of some sort, and he used techniques that were very similar. I think my dad, even though he's a left-brain thinker, I think he was attracted to the discipline part of Scientology. And Andrew, my family is so secretive, and there was just like nothing I knew about my parents growing up, really. And I didn't realize just how secretive they were until I got into Scientology and started doing my own investigation about Scientology itself and my family's background. But the cult and the secret society stuff runs in my family. I got for my 21st birthday, I got a Freemasonic ring, which was a hand-me-down from my grandfather, and he was in the police department. My family history is deep in shady stuff. And I think, I hate to say this, man, but my parents didn't like sell me off to Scientology, or I wasn't, they weren't making any deal. They didn't get any money to put me in there. But my dad is so programmed, and my parents are so programmed that they kind of just sold me off, dude, to insist, to put me in a program that's really dangerous. And to this day, they have no idea, because they're still Scientologists. They have no idea the damage that it did to me. I don't know if they know that I speak out about it. They're Manchurian candidates that can't recognize anything that's been going on around them, you know.
We got recently, like, so I had Elgin Strait, who was, I guess he was born in the Unification Church, the Moonies, and they, even more than many other cults, have this feeling, a lot of the people who have left, a lot of the children of those couples, that they were sort of commodities, like they were used by their parents in a sense, because the only way that the parents can get into heaven is by having a child in the church. So it's like their ticket to heaven, and by leaving this, when Elgin left, it's like his parents can't get to heaven anymore, so there's all this guilt and stuff. And I think it's quite a common thing in cults. People, did you feel in any sense a bit less like a son who's being loved and cherished, and more like a commodity in a sense?
100%. And just to not throw my parents under the bus, because they're good people, they have a lot of good qualities. Like I said, I feel for most of the people in Scientology and these cults are victims. They're not psychopaths, they're not narcissists. Some of them are, but for the most part, they have no idea what happened to them. So yeah, I felt like my parents are not trying to harm me. They were just doing what they believe in. Just like if you're born into an Orthodox Christian family, they know that the way to teach their kids is to go to heaven, and this is the way you do it. The book is everything. So it's not that people are mean or idiots. They're just simply passing on their belief system. So by my parents doing that, though, they took my life. And I don't regret it now, because I've gotten something out of this experience, but it almost killed me. I wanted to suicide myself, and I went through a massive post-traumatic stress disorder event for about a decade once I woke up in January 2008. Like I said, my parents are oblivious to all of this. My dad's at the very top of the bridge and has been for about 20 years. They would consider themselves the most loving, decent parents. We gave our son everything. If they knew I was talking out about it, I'm sure they do. It's just weird that the church hasn't showed up at my door. I don't know what the hell's going on. I expected them to come to my door 2 days after I put out the first video.
I've heard they don't do it as much.
Oh, they definitely don't, Andrew. But I don't want to underplay it either. It's just that so many people have spoken out. So many brave souls that came before. We had Going Clear in 2015, Leah Remini's show, Scientology Aftermath 2017. Dude, when I was like shaking, like still afraid to talk out about this, these shows and everybody that spoke out before is made it what it is today, where yeah, it's no problem. But they still, I don't want to underplay it either, because they still do fair game people. It's just too many people are speaking out. So you're right about that.
And fair game, for those who don't know what that means as sort of a verb, what is that?
Sorry, man. Sometimes I slip into these stupid Scientology words without explaining them.
I think a lot of people will know that, because a lot of people have seen all the documentaries and things, but I just always want to, I'm always conscious of that for the few who don't.
Good call. Yeah, I try to be conscious of that too. So fair game means, especially back in the 80s and 90s, and even when I came out in January 2008, Anonymous had just hit the scene where they started to expose Scientology worldwide. Like I came out the same month that Anonymous did their worldwide protest in January 2008. So I came out at the exact right time. But let's say before that, because they didn't have the exposure that they have, they would hire private investigators to go through people's garbage cans. They do all sorts of things. I don't know what I can say on here. I don't want to libel myself or anything, but let me just say that, well, they had an intelligence operation, which is called OSA. That stands for Office of Special Affairs. That's the equivalent of their CIA. Their CIA, called OSA, was more effective than the actual CIA itself. So that gives you an idea of the operations they were able to run on critics. And dude, there's a whole litany of it on the internet. Like I said, many brave souls have actually died for this, have gone insane, have had their lives destroyed. They have caused so much damage for a group with only 30,000, give or take, members. It's incredible, the damage that they've done.
And I don't mean for this to sound glib or facetious or whatever, but would it sort of almost be, providing it didn't go too far, almost a badge of honor if you did sort of see on the internet one day like a Doug Scott Kramer page that they've made and a bunch of lies made up about you?
I don't really. Here's the thing, Andrew. I'm not I'm not against Scientologists or Scientology. I'm not attacking them personally. L. Ron Hubbard's the one that created this. Well, even he didn't create it, but let's just say he's the founder. And like I said earlier, most of them are victims. So I personally, since I lived it, I understand how it works. My whole channel is basically about breaking down how the trap is done, so that people like me don't just think that they can't fall into a cult. Oh, Xenu, I'd never fall for that. How can these idiots fall for that? What they don't see is the mechanics of how the trick is done. This shit is used on us all the time, every day, 24/7, dude. So for someone to come along and say that they're oblivious, or not oblivious, but that they can't be susceptible to mind control, that's a really stupid statement, in my opinion, because everybody is. And one of the things that I got out of Scientology, which I'm thankful for, despite the torture of it, is that it completely opened up my eyes after I came out of the cult to see just how much what L. Ron Hubbard is using is used on the global scale. And that allowed me to protect myself, because it's not something new that these cults are doing. They've been around since ancient history, dude. It's just that Hubbard and associates, like I said earlier, they kind of perfected it, because he's using some of the stuff, like I said, that they got out of the MK Ultra project. You add all the NLP, dude. The occult. He threw freaking everything into this thing. I feel like I rambled off your question, but I hope that answers a little bit of it.
Absolutely. And do tell us, I guess, in a sort of a layperson way, because I think if they want the details, people can go to your channel, Dazed and Confused, but of what that is, the mind control, the sort of the basics of mind control in that sense.
Do you want to... I have a bunch of different examples that I've used, and I think on Sean's show I busted out an example. Do you want me to kind of just give you an example of like an auditing session or a basic drill or something, so people can kind of see how it works? Because it gets complex, my man. This took me years, like I said, of reading books like Steve Hassan about coercive control and mind control. It's really detailed. As you know, you cover ex-cult members too, and I know you know quite a bit about this too.
I tried to get Steve Hassan on, and he did reply to my first email, and then I didn't hear again, and that happens sometimes. What can you do?
I was gonna have him on, man. I had him confirmed, bro, but I'm sorry. That book's brilliant, but the ones he's putting out since then and what he's encouraging people to do since the pandemic hit, I'm not down with that. So I kind of canceled on him. Yeah, like I would say, my opinion is definitely his book, Combating Cult Mind Control. If anybody was in a cult, if you can get somebody to read it, great book, fantastic book. A lot of that information he took from Robert J. Lifton, who wrote a book called Thought Reform and the Psychology of Totalism, which is basically the root of like how this stuff works. So Steve's later book, so like I said, I'm not for Trump or Biden. I don't do either side, but he just wrote this book about how Trump's a cult leader, and apparently Biden, who can't even say his own name, is great. I don't do any of that stuff. So as soon as he starts trying to sell books, he's not applying his own information that's in there. Both sides are a destructive cult, dude. It's not just Trump that's the narcissist and fucking everything up. I don't like to get into the political shit either, dude. But like I said, as soon as anybody picks a side, it's like I'm sus on them.
Cults on both sides.
There really are, dude. I don't know why that's hard to figure out. It's like people want to pick their particular player rather than do what's good for the whole.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree with you. I think that's a big part of what this podcast is about, sort of showing the subtle ones and the different kinds of ones. Right. But yeah, take me through some of the... And also for anyone who's confused about Steve Hassan, he's just, as you say, he's the guy he's like the guy that everyone talks about cults and stuff and brainwashing.
And if anybody's listening and wondering they're a cult, I would highly recommend picking up that book, Combating Cult Mind Control. He did a thorough job of showing... Because what's a cult? Oh, just a wacky belief system. He shows how a destructive cult works, and he uses this thing, by the way, called the BITE model, which stands for behavior, information, thought, and emotion. And it can allow you to assess whether even a one-on-one relationship or a group dynamic, you can definitely assess using very good information if you're in a cult. So, Andrew, let me give you an example of the very first thing that most Scientologists would do. This is a simple one that people could understand. So they will sell you a communication course, usually. There's a bunch of other stuff that goes on before this, Andrew, about breaking you down, finding your ruin, and then selling you the course. But let me just answer your question and get into what the hell happens. So this communication course, let's say me and you are on this course. You twin up with someone, And then you have a supervisor that doesn't tell you how to do things. They just refer you to the L. Ron Hubbard materials. So you can never speak or interpret the materials. You just do what's said. And everybody twins up. So me and you would be sitting a very uncomfortable distance from each other in a chair, and we would just stare at each other like this, Andrew.
Like
and
close.
you'd have to, yes, like we can actually do it right now. So
Sure.
be completely, I don't recommend this at home, people, but this is how you go into a trance. So if you just sit still, Andrew, no blinking, no thoughts in your head, just be there comfortably. That's the goal of this drill. So me and you would sit here and stare. So I would have just flunked, by the way. And let's say I move. Let's say you're doing a damn good job. It's actually frightening. Can you please come out of that? That's really good. God damn it, Andrew. You're putting me back into the Scientology mode.
Sorry.
I'm not sure we should do this. No, that was great, dude.
I was just thinking, we don't quite get it only because, and I used to have a thing I can put on the camera, and it accidentally got smashed when my girlfriend dropped something on it. But sure, edit that bit out.
She's going to kill you for that, dude. Yeah.
Yeah. But it was a thing you put on the camera, and I would be able to see you through the glass in the camera, and then it would be real eye contact. But because I'm looking
That's
a bit beneath the
terrifying.
camera, I'm looking at the screen. But still, I can do that, but I can not blink and all that stuff. But I do tend to smile or laugh at some point. That's what I couldn't stop doing. But go on. What were you saying?
Yeah. Okay. So I'll just move you through this real quick. So let's say we sit here and we just stare at each other. Now this goes on for hours on end, and your butt moves. So one person is the coach. Let's say I'm the coach and you're the student, but we're both doing the same drill. So if you move, I go flunk, Andrew. You twitched, flunk, Andrew. Whatever. So this goes on for hours on end, weeks on end. And what happens is what they're looking for is what's called a major stable win. Something has to happen. So when I was a kid and I did this is the very first drill I did. You go into a trance eventually. I did this with my sister. So my sister, after a few hours of doing this, started to shapeshift into all sorts of different creatures. The shadows on the face start to blur, and you start to hallucinate a little bit. That's just what happens when you stare at a point anyways. It's a way of putting yourself into a trance. No big deal, but the thing is, that's just one example, and Scientology is constantly keeping you in a hypnotic state, and you're in and around the environment, taking in the L. Ron Hubbard words, so it's all going into your subconscious while you're suggestible. It seems innocent enough, but it's that environment and that trance state that actually implants these ideas without kind of your awareness of just what's happening. So you walk away with these ideas. So after we do the staring one, by the way, the first one actually is with your eyes closed, and you just have to be there comfortably. The second one is the staring. And then this is all the communication course. And then the next one is called, there's a few. I'm just going to cut to the main ones. Another one after that is called bull baiting. So now that you can sit there, Andrew, and be there comfortably, not blinking, not being anywhere else in your head, you're just looking at me, I would now push your buttons. And I'd say, this is like a military thing to get you to not react so that you can both take abuse in Scientology and give it while being desensitized. So this is, like I said, I break this down on my channel. It's a whole deep setup, step by step by step, all under the guise of helping you communicate better. So I would say, Andrew, your eyebrow's a little funky. What do you got going on there?
And I've just got to stare. I've just got to stare.
You just have to sit there and stare. I don't want to do this to you because these are not cool. Okay, fine, dude. But
Punish me.
If I really, Andrew, I was a professional Scientologist, so if I really lay into this, I feel like I could be mean, and I don't want to do that. I did this with the old lady once and caused her to just break down. They train you to have no mercy and to really push somebody's buttons.
See, it feels like, and again, I know this is not the case. You're telling me this woman broke down and stuff like that. It feels like unless you knew me intimately, that there's very little you could say. You couldn't, you don't know the things that would upset. I mean, you've got a face. And I suppose you could say, oh, your accent's stupid and this or that. But I feel like that's very surface level. But I guess are you telling me that really it does go deeper, does it?
You don't think there's anything that I could say that would without knowing your background that would twitch you? Anything about your looks? Now, by the way, it can get sexual too. Girls would do it with guys, and actually they would even show their breasts. I mean, they would go to high lengths to get somebody to blush, to smile. So let's say a girl was sitting in front of you, Andrew, and she started, doing sexual shit to you and kind of getting you to feel, I promise you, dude, if you were at a Scientology place and you signed up for this course, you would definitely have a few reactions. I've never seen anybody do, I don't want to say for sure, but I've never seen anybody go through these courses without reacting.
What I'd say, and I'm sure my girlfriend who edits this podcast would agree, is that I wouldn't react at all. It would be like staring at a blank wall.
That's amazing. Can I ask you how you would be able to do that? Like nothing would be able to get to you. Anything your girlfriend said to you?
No. Well, look, I'm joking with the girls.
What are you, a sociopath? Yeah.
I'm joking with the girls stuff. The girl stuff, of course, because because I know she's listening.
Andrew, you and your girlfriend would twin up. Let's say you both went down there. So the person doing the bull baiting could know all about you. She would absolutely be your partner if you both signed up for that communication course.
Yeah, that's a killer. But even then, they're trying to annoy you.
Exactly. You know it, but and believe me, I felt like you. I can take it, but it gets to you after all. Remember, you're doing this for hours on end, and also I could do that. I could do that. Like anything goes. Hey, Andrew, you just, Louis Theroux in My Scientology Movie does a good version of that. If people want to see that, and there's videos, where you can, he does the bull baiting in that movie.
That's right. And The Master. In fact, the movie.
Yeah. And exactly. Joaquin Phoenix was terrible. He would react at everything. Yeah. But anyway, so you got the bull baiting, and now the next one, another one is you break out the book Alice in Wonderland. Now, what the heck does Alice in Wonderland have to do with? This is all part of setting you, age regressing you, and setting you into this weird new reality. You also play with clay when you make clay demonstration. These are subtle age regression techniques under the guise of communication. So I would pick out an Alice in Wonderland book, and now I was trying to be an actor. Andrew. So these also appeal to artists because we were learning how to communicate with someone. So what I do is I take a line from Alice in Wonderland, which are really weird and is getting you to speak gibberish, but getting you to think that that's more and more normal, because the more you go up in Scientology, the more you're going to be hit with gibberish. But because you are doing weird things at the beginning, like Alice in Wonderland, you're being set into this new reality slowly. So we would read weird things out of Alice in Wonderland, and let's say I was the coach, you as a student would have to learn how to acknowledge me, blah, 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 blah. And you would say, I got that. I don't know what some of the lines in Alice in Wonderland are, but whatever. It's all this weird acid trip shit, right? And then you would say, I got that. You have to give a proper acknowledgement to gibberish. So are you getting some idea of, just on the communication course, there's already certain tools that seem a little strange, but not that strange because you're just communicating. But these are mind control techniques. That Alice in Wonderland, I have a video on my series. It actually comes from the Kubark manual, which is a CIA manual using Alice in Wonderland, which he stole it from, in order to mind fuck people. Again, like I said, it's really complex, just breaking down the communication course. But there's all these elements of subtle mind control techniques that, like you said, seem innocent. Hey, it would be fun if you and your girlfriend were sitting in front of each other bull baiting. It's actually, a lot of people would have fun, and it's terrifying, and then you feel like you're overcoming stuff because I can now stand up to the bully. I don't give a crap what anybody says to me. But like I said, so it seems positive, but you got gobbledygook, a trance state, and you're going to get used to gibberish, getting used to giving abuse, and also you learn how to control somebody else and be controlled. That's another whole other element. It's really loaded with sophistication in terms of what it's actually doing. That's why I tell people, don't go down to a Scientology center. Don't take that personality test, even if you think it's a joke. I've seen people that know it's a joke that go down there, ha, 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 get locked in that room, have their ruin found, and sign up for a course. Dude, I've seen it many, many times. So I just want to warn people, it's not something to fuck with.
You know what I think? You're saying that it's beneficial in some of these practices for like being an actor and stuff like that. I think I would benefit from being the one who says the mean things in the bull baiting, because it must be quite liberating to be able to actually say horrible things and not have that guilt. Because I go through life constantly worried I've offended people, and I bet a lot of people could relate to that and be like, oh, that's a kind of therapy, right?
Dude, great point. Andrew, I was just watching, I have this documentary up about the Process Church, And they use the Process Church of the Final Judgment, which is an offshoot of Scientology, and they were talking about just what you said. This is a guy who's been out of the cult for God knows how many years. I think it was Timothy Wiley or somebody else. And he was talking about that. And there's some validity in that. They do bull baiting too. They do the training routines that we just talked about in that cult. They stole everything from Scientology. And he said, where else can you actually say these kind of things? Where else can you test if you can take it? Dude, I'm telling you, it's this weird double-edged sword. And I've had so many discussions with ex-Scientologists that will swear that these are beneficial, and they're not. Maybe they get out of Scientology and they go, okay, the Xenu stuff's crazy and all that, but I'm still going to hang on to these training routines. I know people that are doing these at their house right now, man, and this is why I try to break down hypnotism on as a main theme, not just some word to throw off and some Spengali, it's not like that. It's more like NLP, and it's more like going into a light trance state while being totally conscious. You're not falling asleep or anything. You do go into a deep trance state a lot of the times in the Scientology auditing, and I've been knocked out for 30 minutes and then come to. So you can actually completely go to sleep, but these are subtle mind control techniques and techniques of putting you into hypnotism and Scientology. So it does seem beneficial, Andrew, and I'd be lying if I said, I got a lot out of Scientology by getting out. I can't say that. I don't know. It's like I said, it's a double-edged sword, but I don't want to push people into, well, I want to get toughened up, therefore I'm going to go join a cult. I think you can get those things without that. And you don't need to test yourself in a mind control cult environment, because there's too many other dangers. And if you just isolate that, and you and your girlfriend want to push your buttons or bull bait each other at home, that's probably not harmless, but you're still, what's the point? I mean, what happens in that, Andrew, is it affects you. Like, I came away feeling bad because I laid into that gal, and she also felt shitty, but then she was on a high a couple hours later because she passed it, and I could say those things to her. It was about her weight, and I could say those things to her, and she had this fake plastic smile on her face because she could finally stand it when I would talk about her weight. That's not healthy, dude. That's what I'm talking about. It seems like it's a good thing because it toughens you up, but I'd warn people to look at the subtleties of what's actually happening in these things. It doesn't make you feel good.
You've mentioned Xenu, and again, I think most people are aware of that. That's like the stuff you find out usually after all the love bombing and all that stuff. And then once you're already sort of in, they tell you about this alien stuff, which, to be honest, is no crazier to me, and people give me shit about this, but it is, that's fine, than any other religion. It's no crazier to me than like a guy coming to life and walking on water and stuff, but it involves aliens, so I guess it gets more ridicule than the other ones, but what difference to me? Did that ever ring true to you in your 20s when you were most in the cult? Was that possible to you that Xenu was real and all the alien stuff?
Well, like I said, they don't hit you on Xenu until OT3, and by the time you get to that, you've invested. That's a level I got to before I went insane, and then a couple years later, that subconsciously, because I had a nervous breakdown outside of their organization, that was the very beginning of me subconsciously doubting. I say subconsciously because I had no idea anything was wrong with Scientology. I thought it was me. Any cult tells you everything's your fault. Oh, it didn't work? Go back and study the materials. You didn't get it. Bro, they don't hit you with Xenu. Very, very few people make it up to that level. 5% of all Scientologists, I would guess, maybe 10%. So by the time I got up to that, and anybody does, you're already 10, 20 years invested of nomenclature and space opera, and you've listened to tape lectures that are all about past lives and how L. Ron Hubbard was on the Van Allen belt and he was like sussing space over here, and he's got the track mapped over here in the Pleiadians, and it's way out there, but you're not hit with that at the beginning. It's the communication course. It's basic tools for life. It's how to fix the family. Then when you get into the auditing, which is where you hold the soup cans, another psychotherapist hypnotizes you and implants false memories into you while you think you're going spiritually free and remembering real past lives. That's when you start to get introduced to the space opera. They throw you onto the tape lectures. You just drone on and listen to Hubbard just gibberish, in the chorus room for weeks, hours, years on end. So by the time you get up to those confidential levels, and bro, they put you through the ringer just to get on there. Your ethics have to be spot on. You have to, this is where they get the blackmail material on you. You have to tell them every crime, everything you've ever done, and fix everything. So they make you want to, it feels super special by the time you get up to that level. You've had 1 million hours of indoctrination and space opera. So by the time you hear the Xenu thing, I completely believed it, dude. And by the way, that created schizophrenia and multiple personality disorder in me, because what you're told on that level is that there's all these, every human being is made up of basically Thetans, what they call them body Thetans, and those Thetan means soul. So you have all these souls, and there's a whole galactic story about how these souls got onto the bodies of humans. But when we incarnate, according to Scientology, we are all, we have all these Thetans and these souls on us. And then when I got onto OT3 and was told this, I felt every night these frickers, them talking to me. So this is, by the way, where the MK Ultra stuff kicks in, because they were to disassociate and create multiple personality disorder. That's a technology. And by the time you get up, it's not just stupid Xenu stuff. It's designed to split you into different personalities. This is another myth that I just wanted to kind of dispense with, because I want to say that this stuff is real, dude. I had voices in my head talking to me. I went crazy, and my dad had to come down, and I'm a normal person, dude, but they made me into this. So by the time I worked my ass off, spent God knows how much money, and dude, the choruses and the amount of time you dedicate, it's like 12 college choruses. So the sunk cost fallacy is massive. You're totally invested, and you totally believe in this. You have 50 or 100 fake past lives you've already believed in, implanted into you. So dude, it's like, it took me so out there. And like I said, voices were screaming in my head every night. I would go to the gym and I would just see, I could almost hear their body things. I would just see everybody around me as filled with these beings, and how special I was, because I knew this secret about all these other humans I was seeing around me. And every religion or whatever, Andrew, would do the same thing, but there is a distinction between a destructive cult and a religion. They all may have crazy beliefs, but check this out. If you remember the Freemasons, Scientology, the OTO, what makes those cults and different than a religion is the pyramid structure, and they dole out information, and the idea is to get to the top. So the Freemasons have, they go up to the 33rd degree. It goes beyond that, actually, but they have, in other words, it's levels. And Scientology, they have all these different levels to get up the bridge. So they dole out bits and pieces of information. If you're a Christian, they're going to say, we believe in Jesus. He died for our sins. You get the cosmology, the creation myth, everything up front. In these cults, in these secret societies, that's why I call that the series Raised in a Secret Society, to distinguish it between a religion. You don't have to pay $1 million, sacrifice your family and your life and your time, and invest in all that to find out their creation myth. It's $1 million in 10 years or whatever to get up to the top, so you can find out what it's all about. And by the way, the very top of Scientology, in the 80s, before they actually removed the very top of the bridge and changed it because it was so offensive to Christians. So what people were learning, imagine this, Andrew, to get from the very bottom of the bridge all the way up to the top, which is called OT8, which stands for Operating Thetan 8, and a Thetan is a spirit. So operating as a spirit, level 8, the highest level you can get into Scientology. He said that he's Lucifer the Lightbringer. He's come to halt the second coming, and he's basically a Satanist. And this is the big secret that he's been holding back from his flock this whole time. And congratulations and welcome to the level where only a few people got to. Now you know the true story about me, and now you can help me to basically do this satanic agenda. That's what people were freaking spending their lives learning, when at the very beginning and most of the way throughout, they thought they were improving their lives and going spiritually free. Now, what if he told you it was a satanic, quote unquote, satanic cult at the beginning? Do you think anybody would join that? So that's the difference between Scientology and, say, Christianity. They don't hornswoggle you and bullshit you and make you pay for levels to find out. They tell you up front what it is. But also, you talk about the beliefs. Yeah, the beliefs are just as crazy. To each their own. But I think they're all ridiculous.
what you're saying about believing in this stuff led to you actually hearing the voices reminds me of, I've recently taken to drinking non-alcoholic beers and then find myself staggering home, like my head's actually dizzy. And I've read, the expectation effect, I think, by David Robson, a science writer, and he talks about people with Parkinson's who are given placebos, who their brains actually start to produce the chemicals to calm their the problem, the symptoms. So it's incredible, the power of the mind. I can see how that might happen.
Dude, great point, Andrew, because so much of Scientology is placebo effect, and some of it does quote unquote work. And that's why it's so hard to kind of break apart, okay, what was good, what worked, what didn't. When you add placebo, what I did when I came out of Scientology, because I was so out there, is I wanted to ground myself in reality. Before I go believing in past lives or any of this stuff again, let me find out what science says. Let me find out what I was kept from, because I only learned Scientology my whole life. What does the rest of the world have to say about this phenomena? So then I learned about placebo effect, coercive control, mind control. I told you I learned about the government control project because it goes deep. And I learned about all this stuff that's basically can be shown scientifically. And you're right, our brains, the placebo effect, it's a real thing, dude. So much of Scientology was placebo effect. And that's another thing. Because like as an actor, I believed I had a special way to communicate, that communication course that we just talked about. You damn right it gave me the confidence when I went into the audition rooms feeling special. And of course that works. If you feel that way, then you perform that way. That's another thing. Like, I was listening to Chris Shelton right before we did this interview, just to see your style or whatever. And he was talking about how belief, it doesn't matter what you believe, it's the actions. But I mean, I know people say that, this is just my opinion, but dude, what you believe are your actions, so they're not inseparable. Like, your perception of reality will determine everything. So even though, like we were talking about earlier, you might believe in Xenu, there is a whole cult structure that goes along with that. You can't just extract yourself like from the Christian church and say, hey, I don't want to be a part of this anymore, and they'll leave you alone. It's not like that with Scientology. So I wanted to get the difference across. But nonetheless, the belief will determine, in my opinion, how you will see the world and therefore how you will act. So they're not inseparable. And like you said, the power of belief, placebo effect, has proven it. We are, our minds can do incredible things. And we don't need any of these cults or any of these religions, I don't think, to access that. Just my opinion, dude. I don't want to bash people.
It doesn't sound like you're bashing people.
I don't want to I always get sketchy when I talk about people's religions, because I have, a lot of my friends are religious, and it's a common thing, and they're good people, and there's some great ideas in all of these religions too. I think they have basic truths in them. So I don't like talking too badly about religion, but at the same time, I guess mine wasn't a religion, it was a cult. And like I said, there's a difference to those two. But at the same time, I don't see too much difference, like you said earlier, with the Xenu and the other creation myths. They all seem ludicrous to me.
Yeah, no, that's how I feel as well. And like, I think sometimes atheists can go so far, and it's just like, we've all got like a friend, a family member, whoever it might be, who is religious, and like, we don't need to be offensive to them if they're not causing harm to anyone else.
I'm not an atheist either, by the way. I think atheist is another religion. I've never seen people more religious than atheists. So atheist, religious, or whatever, like I said.
Some of them.
I don't know, bro. I mean, I've had some of them come over to my channel recently, and they're worse than just freaking religious people. It's like they're more religious. I don't have a conviction in anything, bro. I'm just trying to figure it out.
Yeah, but that's YouTube people.
Is there a whole subset of atheists, by the way? I'm just learning about this.
I imagine there's all types. Well, I would say that I am an atheist, I would say. But I don't think I would go around like...
What is that?
It just means I don't believe in a God.
That means you don't believe in God, right? Well, okay, I might say the same thing. Do you believe there's anything outside of the five sense reality? Or is it like, does an atheist see it as, can I see it, taste it, touch it, smell it? That's it. Is that what you're talking about? Is that tell me how an atheist sees things.
I think it's more like, well, this is the thing. Look, some of them will think like how you just said. I mean, every atheist is going to have a totally different understanding of the world and different layers to it. So for me, it would just be, it's not that I don't believe that there could be something out there. It's just that I have no reason to believe it until one of my senses perceives it. That doesn't mean it's not there, But I just don't have a reason. But I'm not going to bash people who do believe stuff, you know?
Yeah, that makes sense. Like I said, I stand somewhere in between. I don't know, Andrew. I just don't have a rigid belief on anything. And some of the things that happen in Scientology to me, with what we're talking about, the placebo effect and all that, the powers of our mind and stuff, I did have some rather out there experiences. I don't know. I can't prove it. I don't know if the five senses will ever prove it. But it seems to me like there's probably, in my opinion, a hell of a lot more going on than the senses can perceive. That's just totally an opinion. But for me, that takes me right out of the realm of atheist, because I don't think it's just a dead robotic world, and I don't think that there's no spiritual aspect to it. To me, and I'm sure atheists hear this a lot, but to me that sounds like a really limited, kind of sad way to look at the world. I'm sorry, but if that was all that there was,
are you bull baiting me, Doug?
It would seem. Well, I want to talk. I never actually got to talk to an atheist, dude, and I didn't know you were one.
Yeah.
So I'm not trying to turn the interview, but I'm freaking curious how you think.
Yeah, you can ask whatever you want. I'm not going to be offended.
One of the things, my friend, coming out of his cult is because I only see things one way. I have been a little bit overboard on asking people how they see things, so I can broaden my horizons. I've never thought as, I don't know about the God thing or whatever. I don't kind of do that, but I'm just saying, like, as an atheist, so this is all there is. Is it a sad exit? Is it a limited? Is it just hard-nosed scientific way of living a life? How do you see things is what I'm wondering.
I think an atheist wouldn't necessarily say that this is all there is, because there's all sorts of, as you're saying, I think there could be all sorts of things we don't perceive, just as you say, but I think we would all, I don't want to speak for all atheists, I think we would say, but there is a scientific reason behind those things. There is a scientific, there's a reason grounded in science. We can't perceive it because we don't know all the science at the moment. And then the second part of the answer about, like, is this all there is? I think most atheists believe that, like any animal, any sort of life or whatever, that when we die, and that's really sad, man. I wish it wasn't the case.
To me, that seems ridiculous, though. Like, I always felt like I had a continuity even as a kid.
That would be great.
I always felt a continuity.
I'd love that.
Also, Andrew, I don't claim to know anything. Like I said, dude, I don't have my perception set on anything. I'm going to be figuring this out for the rest of my life. What I don't want to do is pitch my tent on some religion or some belief system at all. So I'm just trying to learn as much as I can. I just had experiences in the cult and the weird way I grew up that I can't prove it, but I'm quite certain, at least in my vision, my reality, there's a hell of a lot more. Also, I don't need to believe that. Like I said, when I got out of Scientology, I wanted to learn all the science to explain these things. And once I got to that, there still seemed to be a missing element. So everything, like you said, that we're talking about, the placebo effect, the coercive persuasion, how people fall for cults, there's a whole science out there that does explain that really well. But there's also some things that I think that it doesn't account for. And that's when you get into personal experience. And then that's when you get into the whole, well, prove it. Show me. Like, show me God. Like, I don't think science, the five senses, can do that. So it's like a who knows, right?
Yeah.
It just seems sad to me, though, Andrew, like thinking that this is all there is. And
well, hang on. Let me respond to that, because I don't want you to feel sad about that, because yeah, it's sad, but it's also beautiful. I mean, it was Hamlet and Shakespeare. He first says, like, there's the only thing worse than dying is going to a heaven that lasts forever. Living forever.
That's a great point.
That's fucking
dude.
scary.
Yeah.
So how beautiful that we only have this limited time. I do wish it was more like 1,000 years. 100 or 80 or something does seem quite short, but I do wish we could have a bit more. But I do think let's treasure every moment, every second, because there's no next bit.
I absolutely agree with that, dude. That I want to say something. That's some great points that you made, and I don't want to sound like I'm drifting back in a new age airy fairyland, because that's dangerous to believe in what you're talking about, because then this is what that Nike shoe cult, Heaven's Gate, where they're going to the next level.
Yeah.
This existence doesn't mean anything. That's one of the things that these cults do, is what you just made a great point about is you don't need to worry about this life. There's many more. And so you skip this one. And by the way, that desensitized the crap out of me to living this life. So I'm not talking about that dangerous new age version of looking at that. I felt when I came into this world, before Scientology and everything, I just felt a continuity just as a kid. Like I didn't feel like I was just nothing. I don't even know how to explain that, but that I only understand that now looking back at my life. But at the same, and that, like I said, Andrew, that's what as ridiculous as Scientology was, the fact that there was more to life than just being an animal or a robot, that was already attractive to me, with or without Scientology. So I wouldn't say that that ever left me. It's just Scientology is evil in taking that concept and just like you said, this life doesn't mean shit. You can just float off into the ether, and we're just trying to get to the next level anyways. That's very dangerous.
I get what you're saying, and look, it does feel a bit bleak, this idea that one day you'll just never exist anymore, and we do try to fill that hole. I mean, we seem to be the only animal, or the only thing in the world that has any sort of self-consciousness and awareness that we even exist. So it's a curse to be given that awareness that you exist and you will die and you will no longer. I mean, a dog doesn't know, or an animal doesn't know. We know we're going to die. That's really, really hard. That's a curse. But I think the best thing that I've got to, and I'm only 33, so I've got way more to learn. You know, in 10 years, I think differently. In another 10 years, I might be coming back on here and you're the atheist and I'm the other way. Who knows? But what the best way I've got at the moment,
I doubt it. I doubt it.
We'll see. But the best thing I've learned to do, and all I can think to do, is just don't think about that bad stuff and try and just be as happy as you can every day, live every day, be nice to people and all that stuff. And that's all you can do.
I would counter that too with, since just because of how I grew up, I have, it's expanded my consciousness and trying to actually figure things out even more. Because, dude, one of the most mind-bending things, because Scientology, as we know, looks retarded from the outside, but how would you know if you're in a cult? You don't. You can't suss it. So when I grew up in something like that and then woke up in my early 30s, it made me question everything, because to go through a good portion of your life believing one way and then realizing it was all a trap, it was all fake, and there was mechanisms that did that on purpose, that caused me to see the world in an entirely different way. And if I didn't have that experience, I'm not sure I would have asked very deep questions. And because that wounded me so badly, it took me very, very deeply into myself. And to me, this is where I would agree with Christianity. The kingdom of heaven is within. There's so much that is I think that we can access that we just simply aren't taught about. I would have loved to learn about the placebo effect, coercive control, cults in high school, narcissists, sociopaths. Why is that information missing? Why were we taught fake history? Why didn't I learn about MK Ultra in school when I had to live it and figure it out myself? There's so much missing information that I wouldn't have gotten if I didn't kind of, like I say, get seriously wounded and be forced to look for my own answers. That's why I say I won't become an atheist or a Christian or any of it, because I don't know, dude. I don't need a off the peg belief system. To me, it's life experience and what you conclude, not like wrapping it up in a box or a belief system. Like I said, Andrew, Scientology did a permanent mind thing to me. So I know that might sound a little weird. Or I can't help think differently just because it fucked me the fuck up. You know what I mean?
I was going to say, just because, speaking of, well, I don't know. You were speaking before actually about it helping with being an actor and stuff like that, and sort of gave you the confidence, determination. That sort of leads us on to Tom Cruise, who I just watched him in that film about the planes and stuff, which is not really for me. I didn't enjoy it very much, but the guy looks about 20. He's 60. This guy is almost not of this earth. He looks. I can't believe what he looks like and how he acts and stuff. Now, what are your thoughts on Tom Cruise? Did you ever have any encounters with him? Tell me what you think.
No, I never encountered any of them. Just real briefly at the Celebrity Center where I went, and that's a place in Los Angeles where all the Scientologists that are also actors, producers, etc., go to get brainwashed. That's where they do their courses and stuff. And they have certain tiers where you wouldn't necessarily see Tom Cruise or these people around. They take them through the back alley, put them on the 4th floor. They go to their special places. So I never ran into them, but I did hang out with the C-level actors. These were people like, well, I don't even know if people would know any of these people, but I went to an acting class, which was called Bobby Lyons. There's 2 acting classes you would take if you were a Scientologist. The Beverly Hills Playhouse, run by a guy named Milton Casales, which was mostly a full-on Scientology school, and Bobby Lyons. I went to Bobby Lyons and I met Jason Doring, who was on Veronica Mars. I met Laura Prepon was in my class, and a couple of the Masterson, Danny Masterson, the stepbrother and stepsister, they were in my class. So I was surrounded with these people.
That 70s show.
Yeah. So I hung around the C-level or B-level actors, and Tom Cruise is a different level. If you listen to Leah Remini talk about her, she's freaking funny because she doesn't pull any punches. She basically says he is a different person, Andrew, even amongst Scientologists. I think he looks like he's done something to his face or something, but I understand what you mean about the exuberance and I don't want to diagnose him, dude. You have to do it professionally. So it's just my total guess that he's a psychopath. So with that would come, well, I've learned by interviewing the psychopath on my channel, they're very driven and they're like freaking machines, dude. And they can get so much more done than maybe the average human because their narcissism, their drive to be the best is driving them to be the best. So I think that's one element of the youth, the Energizer Bunny, and also the psychopathy. He's a Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. So he's a total dickhead, dude, behind, I'm sorry for cursing, by the way. If is that,
it's fine.
Not do that, brother?
No, honestly.
I don't want to mess up the, okay, I'll try not to curse, man. He's not, stop that. He's not a good guy, man. I don't know anything about him, but I know that that's the case just from Leah and these other people and my own observations. That, if you listen to it, he got into Scientology because of dyslexia. And if you listen to him talk, I mean, if you really listen, he's not very bright, dude. He's very childlike, which is part of the cult indoctrination. And since he's been so surrounded by David Miscavige in that environment, he's super age regressed. He's super childlike. Plus, he's only been a movie star his whole life. I know just from having a little taste of that, if you're not careful, that can put you into a whole another bubble world. So you add his possible psychopathy, Scientology, and he's a movie star where nobody calls him out. That guy is so far removed from anything that we would call the real world. Dude, that guy is different in a bad way, not in a good way.
Tell me about your channel, Dazed But Not Confused. Do you want to send people over there?
No, don't send anybody over there.
No?
Yeah. I mean, whatever, if people want to. No, I'm just joking. The channel's Dazed But Not Confused. I talk about Scientology and other expanded subjects, basically breaking down the trap and then just doing little video diaries talking about, what it is. And that's it.
Doug, you've been on the edge. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you, my man. I appreciate it, Andrew.
Hi, I'm Andrew Gold, former BBC journalist. I got a little tired of restrictions over who I could interview and what I could say and do, so I made this channel. Click this playlist here, and I'll be seeing you on the edge.